Oh, Donna's in. Oh, Jane's in, and so beautiful and glorious and visible this week. Oh, great! And look, the Dougster's in, Jane. Look, in an Adelaide beautiful outfit. Good on you, Doug.
It's not that bad actually today.
Well, mate, you're in the bloody blankie again.
I know. I just got out of bed.
Well, I'm so grateful to see her. Lorraine's in, Queen Maeve's in, looking gorgeous. Oh, and Kate, you're wearing my favourite colour. We argue about that colour, Kate. I keep calling it a coral. And what are you going to tell me today that colour is? Pink. You don't even talk, you think it's pink. Oh, gee, we'll talk to you in a second. Queen Mary's in. Donna in the middle of the night is with us once more. Paul in the middle of the night is with us once more. Oh, I'm loving that wall behind you. Paul, that's full on industrial. That's a nice looking wall, that. Oh, I just get a nod. Thanks, Paul.
It's water damage. I won't get excited.
Is it really? I tell you what, there are people that spend several £100,000 to get that industrial effect in a Manchester loft, and you know it to be true, Paul.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. So it's great to see you all. And Vita's in. How are you, my darling?
Going well, Tara. How are you?
Oh, better for seeing you. Don't you look glamorous? Look at that as a soft silver top. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, magnificent. So, colleagues, we've got LW too. I'm pretty excited by it is not Liam. It is Liam. Can I say, Liam, all I saw was like a 1968 performance art experiment. I saw the sort of silver dot in the middle of the screen and I went, oh, yeah, I wish I was on the right drugs to make that make sense, Liam.
Hello. I've God, this is so weird. I'm trying to sort out the camera. I'm on a works laptop, so yeah, apologies.
No, darling, it's great to see you. No, it was just the weird light. I was like, come to the light, Tara. Come to the light. Oh, fantastic. So look, colleagues, we're in digital office hours. Isn't it exciting? And Eunice is in as well. All our favourite people are in. Oh, Liam's gone. He gone. Hopefully he can tell us fabulous things on the way through. So, colleagues, look, this is digital office hours. Welcome to it. And as always, sort of this is your floor to explore anything. There are thousands of things we can talk about. And the Kyles is in. Our favourite engineer to the stars is in. Kyles, we can't manage without you. So welcome to Digital Office Hours. Let's start with you properly this week because we've sort of got diverted everything. Lorraine is straight in. So Lorraine, good morning. This is exciting.
Good morning. Thank you. I do have a question to kick off with, but I just want to make a comment about Kate's lovely jumper. You sparked a memory from when I was very young and I used to watch Come Dancing, the ballroom dancing, and the black and white television. And they would, and they'd say, you know, so in a cerise dress. And I'd say to Mama, what colour cerise? Show me, what does it look like? It's just that pink just really reminded me of going panicking. What does cerise look like?
Oh, anyway, look, I know, because I think as I've got older, Kate is probably correct. That's on the pink bit rather than coral. Coral's got a bit more orange, I think. We'll engage Mary's expertise shortly on that because she also wears some coral. But Lorraine, let's get into this, girlfriend.
My question, yes, thank you, everybody. So I've been interviewing my research participants. I've interviewed 9 people. I have another one booked in next week.
Nice.
I think I'm reached saturation.
Yep.
And I've just wondered what your thoughts with that. You know, can I make that assumption too soon? I just don't think I'm going to get any the themes, regardless of how many, unless I change my question, my sort of prompt questions.
So Lorraine, that's a brilliant idea. And the idea that Liam's here is just fantastic because I'm sure he'll have something to say on that. I've got sort of 2 pots of information for your consideration and discussion. The first pot of information is the old argument, as it used to be taught to me when dinosaurs roamed the earth, is you reach saturation in qual when you start to hear the same material for the 3rd time. So that was taught to me as saturation. So once you're going boof, 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 then you're pretty well good to go. So that's the first pod I was taught when dinosaurs roamed the earth about qual. The second component, though, as I've got older and I've sort of realised, you know, nothing is representative anymore. And it's just, we're all just fragmented, you know, to quote the great philosopher's canvas, we're just dust in the wind, mate, dust. So what I've started to explore with a lot of my students is, do you ever actually get representative data? So I now have the binary opposition of representative data sets and illustrative data sets. And what I've been doing with my wonderful students that are doing qual quant is we've created some flesh around the bones. And I'm thinking Gorgeous Amanda is a great example. Those of you that know Amanda, we're putting flesh around the bones of illustrative data set. So is anything, you know, if you interview 20 million people, is that representative data for the planet? Well, probably not. So therefore saying this is an illustrative data set, this is how it's been configured, this is how I started, this is how I've stopped, and this is what it illustrates. So Lorraine, that's how I handle qual now. Well, I could be talking rubbish. Liam, you handle this work much more effectively than I do. And of course, youth studies, criminology, sociology, this is your bread and butter, Liam. Do you want to go hard at what I've just said there, brother?
Absolutely. So just following on from what Tara said, I'm wondering whether, are you using grounded theory? First of all, is that your frame,
No.
Lorraine?
No.
No. Okay, so there's a lot of literature around the use of grounded theory, Gleiser and Strauss, and saturation. So I think that's where it originates from. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
So I think let the data guide you if you're using that particular frame, because it's a inductive approach where you're not being guided by a specific research question.
Yeah.
Or even a specific frame of literature. You're letting the kind of literature guide, the research interviews guide you.
Yeah.
So I think using that frame might be appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of controversy around using grounded theory, especially in sociology.
So while Liam is pondering that, so can I say, Liam, I've never seen so many people using grounded theory as I have at CDU. It's
Wow.
almost evangelical. So it's, and you sort of wish people well and you don't want to dislodge that. But so Lorraine, grounded theory has a particularly evangelical commitment to it. And I understand that and I respect it as a paradigm. But the critique would be, to summon my late husband, the critique would be that it's empirical, nay, empiricist. So it's assuming that one can park the theory, capital T, small t, and allow the evidence to determine the shape of your argument. Now that sort of sounds good. So the data determines where the interpretation goes, and that's cool, and that's within its own paradigm and discourse that makes sense.
Yeah.
The caveat from me, and probably Liam as well, is can one ever park theory and think that you're doing actual fact? Now, so if you're saying yes, obviously you can. If it's a fact, it's a fact, it's a fact, great stuff. But I would argue we can never park ever a lens of theory, noting that the empirical and indeed empiricism is a lens in and of itself. So Liam, brother, do you want to keep going with that? Have I again misconstrued?
Yeah. There's lots of claims as well, specifically. So youth work studies uses this frame a lot because it's led by professional practice, etc. But that they've actually created a new frame and theory by the end of it. That's what you arrive at, a frame / theory that you've created from the research that you've undertaken. So there's a lot of overclaiming in grounded theory. Because you're not really making a theory, so to speak. And I might get shot down by this, by other listeners. But yeah, there's lots of concerns.
You're using phenomenology.
Yeah,
Right.
so hermeneutic phenomenology, because that I didn't align with that, suspending your biases. I think it's really integral. I think my experience, my understanding of this specific group is integral to my interpretation of it.
Yeah, so phenomenology, that'll work with that. So phenomenology, as you know, Lorraine, is also a bit of an evangelical commitment as a community. Like the idea, when I once said to someone, what's outside of phenomenology? And I remember the old professor said, nothing. Outside phenomenology. So it's very drinking the Kool-Aid. So, but again, Lorraine, you're brilliant because you're aware I'm in this paradigm. I know the strengths and weaknesses of this paradigm and moving forward with that. So I think, as Liam said, the notion of saturation, at its most basic, Lorraine, configure a parameter for managing data. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All this stuff around it. But okay, we got data, and how are we going to handle that data, right?
Yeah.
And so the answer to your question is, some people call it saturation, but you could say, by the time I've come across the same idea a third time,
there's the themes,
I'm able to action thematic analysis, content analysis, whatever modality, symbolic interactionism, whatever you'd like to be doing. And so it's just simply for the examiners, for your readers, explaining this is how I've started the data collection and this is how I end it. So that's data, and then explaining with great textured granularity how the interpretation emerges from that data collection.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you guys, I really appreciate that.
Lorraine, I don't know if it help. Go, Liam.
If you end up using thematic analysis as a lately employed frame, towards when you're getting towards the end of the thesis, if you rediscover your analytical frame, don't make the mistake of saying that the themes are merged from the data.
Yes, I've seen a lot of people say that. Like it drives them crazy.
Clark do not like that. Like they've said numerous times, don't say that, because it's not like soup where it floats to the top like a dumpling. No.
Yes. Yeah.
Lorraine, aren't we lucky that Liam was on this call? Isn't this fantastic? But so Liam and I live in this space. Those of us that have done work in criminology, sociology, youth studies, and of course my sort of PhD, as Liam knows, was on, you could call it youth studies, really, and post-youth studies. And these debates are quite significant to us. And look, content analysis, thematic analysis seems a bit, you rarely hear these phrases used these days, and when they are used, they tend to be used pretty badly. Like as Liam said, it's sort of like emerged from the, as like, here's like a jigsaw or something. So
I've been using Brown and Clark, and that's exactly what they say. Please don't say merge.
Brilliant. So Lorraine, I think you're rocking. So
thank you.
We've got one big project, sort of. Well, it's got Liam and I fired up already. Who wants to have another go? Hi, good morning, Eunice. Well, she's in that classic white again. Gee, Eunice, you look beautiful in white. Can I just say that? I can't wear it. But colleagues, next question. Where would you like to go now? What's a vibe? Oh, and Vita's straight in. See, look at the magnificent silver. The glamour speaks. Come on, my queen. Oh, nice.
I'm glad that it's looking like it's silver on screen. It's actually a really dull gray. So Zoom's definitely doing something for me today.
Doesn't look like that. Zoom is rendering it sparkly.
So that discussion was extremely fascinating because all my co-PhD students within my research center are all qualitative researchers.
Yes.
I'm the only quantitative researcher. So they all keep throwing around all these theories, and I'm in the middle of the conversation. And yes, there are a few using grounded theory. So that was just fascinating from that perspective. And yes, all CDU.
And I understand why, because, and I think, Anvita, why it's happening, I think, and please correct me, why I think it's happening is it's such a rich, complicated place, the territory, and there's so little research here. It's this wild, wonderful, fabulous place, and so the data sets are rich and unusual and unresearched. And so people are then going, well, look, let's start. And when you're sort of starting, probably grounded theory is the way to do it. But please go, my darling.
Yeah, sorry. So my question is completely different, and I might have to take this off this forum with you, Tara, just for a university perspective. But I'm about 5-6 months into my final year, so I have to submit my thesis in March of next year.
Yes.
But I have reached a strange crossroads wherein I'm ideally doing a PhD by publication, but because I've had a bunch of delays based on just the data set that I've been trying to acquire,
Yes.
I've come to a crossroads wherein I'm starting to think about whether I should opt to continue down this path or whether I should convert it into a dissertation, like a full dissertation, because I'm just concerned about finishing.
Yes. Right.
And finishing on time. And then that obviously brings up all these other questions, whether have I done enough or not? So
yes, wow. So darling, we can handle this online, and I'm happy. Can I firstly say I've probably lost this battle about the PhD by publication, not prior by publication, although maybe not, because universities around the world are starting to stop its enrolment. And there are many reasons why they're trying to stop the enrolment. And part of it is about the code of conduct. That it is interesting. I'll just put this factoid out there for colleagues, that in disciplines where supervisors don't co-write with their students, you don't see the PhD by publication. In the disciplines where you see that students and supervisors co-write together, the supervisors really like the PhD by publication. So let me just put those two facts out there. You don't see it in philosophy or comparative literature or history, for example. So there you go. So, Anvita, the point I would say to you is I got 13 publications out of my PhD, with 6 trailing from different parts of it. That was not a PhD by prior publication. That was a traditional thesis that within 3 months of submission, all singly authored. So what I would say to you is, and I'm trying to not get emotional about it, and again, this is not a CDU issue, I saw it at Flinders as well, the students that are doing this publication thing, and of course we know publication delays. So you're enrolled in a PhD by publication and there are publication delays.
Yep.
So then the next question is, well, what the hell are you doing? So you're going to submit a PhD to examiners as a supposed PhD by publication without
no publications. Yeah.
Right. So the first thing is, so for all the punters out there watching this, don't let this be you. For the second variable, and Vita darling, I have a great bit of news for you, and I will look after you, Angel. So I'll read the whole thesis. You'll be looked after in those 5 months. So I will look after you. The one advantage of you and I having this relationship is you've got me and we walk through this together. Now, Anvita, what you need to know is actually the PhD by publication, I'm putting it in inverted commas, is not actually a mode of thesis. It's embedded in the traditional thesis.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change modes. You're already in the mode, right? Okay. So the first thing is, in terms of enrolment modalities, you're cool, you're golden, you're fine. So therefore, all we now have to do is take what you've got, just de-publish article them in some ways. It's a weird verb I've just used there. So instead of saying
no, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
So instead of saying in this article, you say in this chapter. So you just do a control replace article to chapter. That takes 2.5 minutes, in, out, shake it all about. Then what I do, the next stage that I'd go through is I'd focus some good attention in the next 2 weeks on your introduction and your conclusion. So just render those complete and big and interesting. Now, in a lot of quant, the intro and conclusion are shorter. In your case, I would render them longer and I would write them now. I'll tell you why, just so you're mentally clear about what you're doing.
Yep. So I've got my intro, I've got my conclusion.
Great. Yeah, revisit them now. So revisit them now to make sure that you've rendered the arc of the thesis complete. You're clear in your mind what your SOC is, Anvita, because the challenge is with the PhD by publication is that the SOC sort of gets parked in the car park because it's all about the publications. Now it's forgetting that peer review and examination are 2 different things, right? So what we need to do is just you make sure they are big and robust and complete, and you mention the SOC really strongly in both. Then I want you to, now how many articles have you got? How many chapters have you currently got?
So now let's come to the most fascinating bit of my PhD is I'm still waiting for my data, but I had a plan B, which I have executed.
Right. Let's go.
I'm still waiting.
So let's ask the obvious question, what the hell happened to the data? I'm going to put that on a t-shirt, Kylie. So where's the data?
It's still coming. But I didn't want to wait for it.
Where's it coming from?
It's a large Queensland-based data set, which has just taken time because they've never shared it prior with anybody else. I was the first person to want to apply for this data set and analyze it. So I think they had to come up with their own application procedures.
Yes.
And clear it with their steering committees, and then get about 3 ethical clearances internally. So
Right.
I'm still waiting.
So, and Vita, darling, so the first thing is give me that information in an email with the people, and as Dean, I will write to them on your behalf to just say, look, if we're going to do this data, could we do it now? I'll note ethics clearances, make sure the data set's protected at CDU, we respect ethics. Let me try and massage that. But okay, let's go to plan B.
My plan B is using published data.
Yes.
So I'm doing an economic evaluation. That's my methodology. And I can do it using published data because my entire approach is through modeling or model data. So it's all simulated. So my plan B was to use published data and then do it. So I have all of that ready.
Great.
But that was my plan B. So I'm wondering whether I should just execute plan A or plan B, but I'm working that out.
Well, we'll get the commentary for the family, but every part of my body, my small intestine, my pancreas, my liver was heading straight for plan B. Is anybody else with me? Are we at plan B now? So Kyle's, the engineer and the family's go to plan B. So, and Vita, darling, I'd go to plan B. And
yep.
And look, unobtrusive research methodologies are crucial. They're magnificent. Can I also say that nationally, some very interesting policy work is happening around published data and making sure it's called, by the way, sustainable research, something I get quite emotional about and love. So in other words, can we just stop thinking that an original contribution to knowledge comes from giving more data? Trust me, the planet's got enough data, right? What we actually need are sustainable methodologies to use the data sets that we have and use them well. So there's all sorts of magnificent stuff for your intro and your conclusion about found data, using it well, unobtrusive research methodologies, sustainability, using what we have with clarity and precision. So I think that's a goer, my queen.
All right, thank you.
And so just final question for me so I can sort of sleep tonight before I send you an email on Monday morning. So how many chapters are you thinking, or what's sketched in between your intro and conclusion?
Three chapters. I have a systematic review which is going out to publication now.
Yes.
I think by next week it should go out to the journal, so I'm not concerned about that too much.
Yes.
But I have chapters for this economic evaluation and I plan to write them up in 2 parts.
Yes.
So almost like it's 2 chapters, but stemming from the same research question, if that makes any sense.
It does. So what I'd say to you is I'm with you, and have a good go with a sock for me. And then when you feel like it, when those 2 chapters are written, please send me that thesis, okay? Just so the only then variable your old dean will then check after the sock is to check scope and scale.
Okay.
Check scope and scale, and that's quite significant for quant. And as you can see, just going quickly to quant, a very handsome man has appeared below Kylie on my screen. The 2 quant people on the call, back to the Brady Bunch. So Jamie Quinton, I know you've just come in and you're about to go out and fly out, but Jamie, can I just get a clarification for Anvita about a quant analysis? Now it's sort of more economic quant, so it's to the social science, so it's to your social scientific configuration. But in a quant study like that, would 3 chapters be sustainable? Just most of your students and the students in the experimental sciences, the harder sciences, have 5. But have you seen 3 function?
Yeah. Normally you don't have quant without qual anyway. So you can have semi-quantitative analysis where you have some measure of attributes you're trying to compare qualitatively, and then you collect your data, you configure it and present it in a way where the person who's reading it can see the information you want them to extract. And then you describe it. You describe the data, you describe the comparison, and that's kind of the general approach, right?
Lovely. And how long are those chapters, Jamie?
In terms of words or pages or something?
In terms of words, it'd be good if you can, just for Anvita.
few thousand, maybe 5,000 words.
See, it gets challenging, Jamie, and that's why I sort of, as dean, putting the old dean hat on. I've just got to make sure she gets to the minimum word length, right? And see, that's the other problem with the PhD by publication, is people were putting in, and you know, it's so sad, this has happened so often, putting in a thesis that's about this size, it's about 40 or 50,000 words, and examiners fail it because it hasn't reached the regs. So let's just,
one of the big challenges is don't assume that the reader looks at your data and then makes the same interpretation that you do. Explain it to them. So you can generate a lot of words by just taking the reader on the journey.
Yeah, and I've got concepts which are quite confusing, and they need to be explained at a great amount of detail for the reader to then understand.
Beautiful. I think that's so wise. And I've, you know, when I've, you know, been as dean working with experimental sciences, the really hard end of the applied social sciences, it's the colleagues who are able to really take the data set for a walk. And as Jamie said, don't assume the interpretation, walk with the examiner through the data sets. We love this stuff. And when Jamie and I have supervised together, we've been stunned, haven't we, Jamie, on the applied social sciences, where too many students just assume that the data, there's the data and we all agree with it.
So my most frequently used comment when I see a draft is, don't undersell your data, right? You've got your data, you've gone to a lot of trouble to get that data, take it for the walk. I mean, you know, treat it like it's valuable, don't treat it like it's trivial. And actually go through it, to talk through all of the data, identify the main elements that you want the reader to notice, and then do what you're going to do with it. And that'll generate thousands of words. I mean, it's quite frightening. Like science students, even the technical ones, they get surprised when they're told up front, you know, you're going to have to write 70,000 words or something on this, and they go, and then eventually they learn that they've got to cut stuff out, because you can generate words really easily.
So, and Vita, darling, use the same rule as I use for my makeup. More is always more. Okay, so think about Betty Davis and Baby Jane, right? So we want this to, thanks, mate. We want this degree of layering. So don't think, I think students always think that they, you know, oh, I'm being too obvious. It's like, girlfriend, you can't be too obvious. You can't be too obvious. Just think about my lipstick, and Vita, somebody going, oh, do I need that paragraph? Remember my lipstick, and go, I'm leaving that.
Thank you.
Wasn't that an interesting conversation? But
that was great. Thank you.
Keep with us. And as I said, luckily, ironically, I'm your dean. Hi.
Yeah.
And so together we will do this. We will be the Sith Lords of sustainable research, and we will carry this through. And this will be a great thought experiment, and we'll look after you, darling.
Thank you.
That's amazing. We'll go to Maeve first, then Queen Gay. The gang's in. How are you going, Maeve?
Going well, very stimulated by Anvita's discussion, totally fascinating, and thank you, and amazing to have Liam on the call on the right day. Well done, Liam. And I just want to say something that is just, I think, utterly obvious. So I've hesitated about 4 times on whether to say it or not. But the thing that I think, and I'm not at your level there, and Vita, it is, I would just take like obviously Tara said plan B, but I think you would just do it for the sake of taking the pressure off yourself of all those things that aren't in. Yeah. And with that pressure off yourself, you're going to blitz it no matter, you know, however Tara tells you to do it. And known Tara a long time, just do word for word what she says. Obviously you will do.
No, Maeve, I'm an idiot, but can I say my rule for life, I am. So Anvita, you know, the stuff I know about, I can't manage a fridge, right? So when I don't know, I'll just go Anvita, refrigerators, laundries, beyond me, right? But what I would say, Maeve, I live by this for not only doctoral students and research, but in my own life, that you've got to control what you can control. seriously, because thousands of things happen every day and they're catastrophic. And if you sort of got invested in that stuff, you'd top yourself. You would top, you just live in despair, right? So what you've got to do is just control what you can control and make that work the best you can. And if people are going to do all this crazy stuff, you've got to let them, because you can't control other people's stuff. And Vita can control this sustainable data set. There is a great story to tell. Let's tell that story. Well said, Mo. Fantastic. Queen Gay's in the house. How are you, my darling? Everybody's been caring for you all week, my darling. So how are you going?
I'm going well, thank you. I had my meltdown, as you saw, and I'm doing better.
Brilliant.
Two things. I wanted to say to Anvita that your data will always tell you more. So milk it for everything you've got, because you may have an aspect that nobody has ever thought of. So milk it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
The second thing I wanted to say was just a follow-up from last week. If you remember, I did that public talk. 2 days later, I got an email from the Queensland Society of Family History saying, one of our people was at your talk. Would you please come and do a talk for us? The same talk?
See, look at Kylie. Woo, woo, woo. So Gay, I don't want to get all weird wicker on it, but the universe does send back. If one is courageous, the universe sends back and rewards that courage. So you are, and thank you, Paul. And so a career is born, and there it is. See, and we talked about how many weeks ago now, you know, you were concerned about family history and who gives a damn about family history. And everyone on this call said, family history is everything. That's where everything exists and everything starts. And your data set is now proving that that was an accurate interpretation.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for your support.
We adore you. That's absolutely fantastic. And Adrian's in, and I want to have a chat with Paul in a second. But Adrian, how are you going, darling? Great to see you.
Yeah, no, really well, thanks. Just doing the taking lots of notes from what you've discussed so far. So yeah, really rich discussion. So thank you.
So where are you on the methodology theory thing, Adrian? We've never had this conversation.
We haven't, and I'm a little bit scared to tell you because
you're grounded theory, aren't you? You're grounded theory, aren't you?
I'm actually I'm doing arts-based research, and right. I'm kind of toying. I'm going into the different paradigms, so the Indigenous paradigms, because it's a collaborative study. Myself and there's a Samoan artist. We're working together, and yeah, creating a piece. I'm getting my artifact together, and it's what I've been. I guess it's phenomenological in many ways, but it's tying in Indigenous ways of knowing and being, Samoan ways of knowing and being that are very much relational. And so I'm kind of getting into relational theory, and in terms of methodology, though, I think yeah, I think it's very generative, and I know I think I've got the word emergent in my title. No, nice. I don't. So I took it out, but no, it is very emergent, if I can say that without being killed. And as an artist, you know, you learn so much from just doing art and reflecting on that process. And so it's yeah, I'm still unpacking how it's all looking, but really just treating the whole thing as a learning process and documenting that process. So yeah.
See, Adrian, I think that's magnificent. So when you're using arts-led, arts-based, practice-led, practice-based, creative-led, creative-based, all of that in a matrix, it is always going to be iterative, and therefore your theory and your methodology must be configured in a way that can manage the iterations. Yes. So in other words, because we always use the word iteration, and it's like that and that, but of course no one talks about, well, how do you get the momentum into the loop? Mm-hmm. You need a theory for how you create that momentum to create that creative-led, practice-led process. And phenomenology is one way to do that. So it's all fitting together well. And emergent, I love. That's going to, next life when I come back and I develop perfume, I become a perfumery. Emergent is going to be the name of my perfume, because I mean, what a perfume that is. Like, it's emergent. So you like emerge into a room and it, you know, it smells like a meth den and it is an emergent scent. You have arrived. So no, but Adrian, that works, brother. That works.
Yeah, it's getting there, and I'm really just trying to be true to the relationship that I'm building that is emergent. It's it really is just a constant source of great rich information. And I've got all my transcripts here that I've been going through over the last couple of days, and the data from that, as everyone's saying, is just, it's so rich, and I'm just loving going over it and over it and over it, and just picking out so much of it from it. So yeah, it's great stuff.
So Adrian, there's all, I mean, in some ways what your thesis is about is relationships. And I love theses that do this. So it's your relationship with the interviews, your relationship with the data set, your relationship with the art, your relationship, and I'll use the phrase co-designers. I'm worried that's becoming so cliched. It's a bit of content, and it's frightening me, because when it started, it was a great word, because design was so important, and co-design, particularly dealing with colonization in its multiple configurations, it works brilliantly. The trouble is now, every meeting I go into, some random says co-design. Yeah, we're going to co-design this policy. Oh no, really? You think? And of course, co-design basically means 4 or 5 people who don't know what they're doing to get together and create something that they don't know what they're doing, right? So, and that's not how it was meant to be used. It was experts coming together with divergent expertise and making something magnificent. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah, well, let's hope so.
No, well, I'm very excited. I think you're doing absolutely right. No, I think it's the theory, methodology, everything's magnificent, mate.
Thank you. Keep going.
Keep going. Now, should we go to other questions now, or should I have my quick interlude with Paul? Can I have my quick and beautiful Sue's in too? So I want to desperately have a talk with Sue in a sec. But Paul, mate, I saw you do something fantastic on Twitter this week, which I've been completely obsessed about. No, as I've been moving through I'm holding down 2 jobs at the moment. So I'm Dean of Graduate Studies and DVC Research and Innovation at the moment for the next month. So I've got 2 schedules, and so I'm going, what's my own name? But Paul, at about 4 a.m. in the morning, I saw your tweet with you recording your podcast for your teaching. Now, I'm completely obsessed. I think for many reasons, because I'm obsessed by you, obviously, but I'm obsessed by seeing you do that recording. I don't think I've ever seen anybody actually doing that. I think I took pictures of Narelle's workspace during COVID when she was doing her teaching and learning, and Jamie's workspace when he was doing teaching and learning under COVID. But to see you do that, it moved me greatly. And I think as a tracking device in andragogy and SOTL, that's crucial. And I don't know if I've got the framework at this point to understand how we need to all log that process as overtly as you're doing it. Can I just park there? I don't know where I'm at on this, but I know it matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's part of the reason I started doing it was to give, mainly for the master's students I was teaching, give them an environment in which I am doing it for them, almost a performance in a way. So I'm providing them the modality of an environment that I am producing the audio content for their lecture. And that's the reason I started doing it. And then there was, across our university campus, from other colleagues and students, there was this kind of instant, like moth to a flame buy-in, because they're looking at the working performing arts, they're looking at the backstageness of what I'm doing. And there was a teaching and learning buy-in of actually, that was quite interesting for them to see that what we're doing behind the scenes to enable teaching and learning. So I came at it from the modality of giving the learner the environment in which I'm teaching in, and it sparked off lots of cool ideas. So that's why I started to do a bit more publicly.
Well, I just think that's unbelievable. And I went straight to, Paul, I don't know if you're going to write that up, because you really should, but I went straight to, in terms of the theoretical work that frames that, and I think I've used frame correctly there, would be John Urry's theorization of the backstage, you know, from all those years ago, I think 1992. You and I sort of live in the theorization of the 1990s before neoliberalism completely destroyed everything. But Urry, but I think also going way back to Goffman's original work that started in his thesis on the, I mean, everyone talks about the Goffman Frontstage, and I've written a lot on leadership in the Goffman Frontstage, but the backstage of teaching and learning.
Yeah, it came from a citation, or basically there's something I read that there's in performing arts, there's a lack of scholarly writing around the backstage because inherently it is backstage, it's hidden from an audience.
Yes.
So because it's hidden from an audience, we don't write about it, we don't know about it. And that's kind of that citation stuck in me, and actually going, well, then we need to bring this forward in what I'm doing for students, but equally within teaching and learning to bring this forward. So that was, it was essentially around what you're saying. It was brought around by this theoretical citation of actually we need to bring elements of the craft, but also the teaching of that forward in people's mind and see what goes on behind.
Well, that's amazing. I'm going to be recording, again, some sonic training for our colleagues here on the weekend, a couple of hours of work. And I think, inspired by you, I think I'm going to, I don't know what's going to happen, but I think I just might record even a snippet of that to show, because I mean, your setup is so magnificent. At the moment, I'm sort of in temporary accommodation and I'm using lounge suites as my sort of sonic buffers around everything, so like to not have to bounce off the tiles. So it's this weird sort of, you know, weird version of a studio, but there's something interesting about doing that. So I might back you up and record something bonkers that's happening in Darwin in temporary accommodation.
I think that's part of it, though, isn't it? That's exploring the environment that which you're working in, and that shouldn't be a aesthetically correct studio. It should be wherever you're creating or teaching and learning, and that's part of the interest for me. Is actually sometimes I'm doing it in my office at university, sometimes I'm doing it at home, sometimes I'm recording stuff in the car, but I still video bits of it, and then within if it's a bite-sized lecture that's going to go as kind of a slip seminar, if it's a 20-minute audio lecture, I'll put 30 seconds of that video within that lecture just to show people or link it back to that kind of the grounding of the environment.
See, that is absolutely brilliant. And of course, Paul, you and I probably, I mean, obviously I'm decades older than you, but you and I both loved, I think, the gift of podcasting and the new digitized sonic arts, that it was no longer about that sort of sterile dire straits environment. The sonic architecture became part of the story, and the warmth and complexity and the bleeding of sound is actually part of the story and probably is the story.
Yeah, and it's sound is funny because it is timeless, because there's no visual to link it. So you know, you could listen to your podcast in 30 years, it will still sound like Tara. Do you know what I mean? Within that time, but you don't know the reference of time because you can't see an image. That's kind of why I also like, as a sideline, actually, if you put a bit of video and it links it to a time and a place, and time is linear.
That is fantastic, because you're right, because sound does float and bounce. And there's a weird gift of that, Paul, because of course dead people, you can listen to their voice like they're alive. So it cheats death, but also in some ways it lies about death too, because you're not seeing.
Yeah, it's my kind of my distant argument with Roland Barthes, kind of Death the Author. I'm pushing against that a bit.
Oh, look, and it's funny how you and I are, you know, we're separated antipodally, but we are reading the same thing. So I'm finishing off a sonic piece at the moment, and I'm revisiting Barthes myself in the thing we're going to write in Write Club today. So it is interesting. And I know Liam's doing the same thing, separated around the world, and yet these older conversations are coming back because they're creating new meaning.
It's sustainable research being resynthesized in a modern tech, you know. That's kind of a lot of what I guess a lot of the background of my research is looking at sustainable research, but looking at it through the lens of the digital society.
Yes, absolutely remarkable. The weird bit of work I'm doing at the moment is looking at Schaefer, going back to all Schaefer's work about soundscape. And I mean, I'll give you the title because I'm hoping to have this article out in a couple of weeks, but looking at the soundscape of the neoliberal university. And just seeing what neoliberal education sounds like. And that's, yeah, you can see my brain sort of, and I'm interested in that. So it's the political economy through sound. And I don't know if it's going to work, but I think the attempt to have a go at that is interesting in and of itself, even if I fail.
Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. That does sound good.
Let's see if I can
like it.
See if I can pull it off, Paul, but I'm inspired by you. Now, Maeve or Liam, who was first, Maeve? Who should I go to? Go to Liam? Go. Liam, she's pointed at you, so you go.
I'm an observation about your conversation about the neoliberal institution, and a piece of work that you did for the Times Higher Education in the 2000s about Mickey Mouse degrees. That conversation has repeated itself in government policy with the Office for Students in the UK, and it has hit us like a ton of bricks in the last week or so. So some quite nasty stuff's emerging in the UK at the moment about crackdowns on certain degrees, especially in the arts, humanities and social sciences. And, you know, I've been doing a lot of work around recognising what's happening to some of our institutions, like, for example, Brighton, which have, tragic. But I'm going to an institution in September that is a lot like Bolton, where you previously was, Tara, and it's exciting, but also a really worrying time, especially when our disciplines are being absolutely smashed to pieces. Yes. And we're being threatened from a great height. Yeah. So yeah, it's just an observation on how that's kind of coming back round again.
No, it is. And Liam, I did know that for multiple reasons. The first thing I need to say, Liam, is that, you know, I'm devastated. I spent 6 years of my life in Brighton. Important place for Steve. We did some very good work there. I wrote the University of Google at the University of Brighton. So the book that is the book of my career probably was written there. And I am desperately concerned that I'm not there to have the good fight, because when I was doing those weekly columns for the Times Higher Education, it was like a weekly boxing match where this would happen and I would write 1,000 words and, you know, all the trolls would come out and we would be staunch and we would fight. And I knew something had happened, Liam, because that Mickey Mouse degrees thing, and by the way, so media studies in the UK was called the Mickey Mouse degree. And of course, I was the professor of media studies. So bring it, girlfriend, bring it, bring it, bring it. And I was at the University of Brighton too. So it's like, bring it, bring it. And Liam, I knew something had happened because that article has been read over 10,000 times this year, plucked out of nothing this week, plucked out of nothing. So the Times Higher let me know, because, you know, my articles, particularly on PhD students, continue to sort of be very well read, for which I'm incredibly grateful. But there was an oddity where that one just suddenly went from zero to hero in a week. So I'm hoping it's useful for colleagues. And Liam, if I can help in any way, you call in my services, okay? And all I'd say to you about working in a place like Bolton, and I'm 54, and I don't know how many days or weeks or months or years left I've got of academic life. But when I look back on my career, Liam, it's the University of Bolton that means the most to me. It was the one job where I went to work and I enjoyed every day. I enjoyed every day something astonishing would happen. The students were magnificent. My colleagues were magnificent. I loved working there. Now, the problem was it was a dreadful contract I was on. I could be sacked at a day's notice. And the Vice-Chancellor was frightening. And can I say that Vice-Chancellor is still there and he's still frightening. And I can say that because I didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement when I left for a job to return back to Australia, but many of the colleagues that he did sack had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so that's why the silence of what happened at the University of Bolton has been sustained. But Liam, it takes courage, and it's very easy to have courage at my age. It's harder to have courage at your age, but know that there are so many people around the world who respect you, and we're with you always, all right? We're with you always. And know that the work is meaningful. And to quote Steve back at us all, he always would say, Liam, if you're prepared to work anywhere in the world, you'll never be out of work. Now, I'm not sure if he's right, Liam. Probably my career has provided enough data sets to show that he might be. But Liam, keep the relationship with all of us going, because we can provide your trampoline and give you a bounce if you need it, okay?
Absolutely. I mean, I've left one institution after I've just been appointed permanently to go to this new place, and I feel like that was a brave move within it. I've been told by quite a few people that that's quite a brave move, you know, and quite bold to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we're living in very, very scary times. I'm more scared than what it was with COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. And Liam, what I would say to you, mate, if this helps you, is don't think that permanence is permanence. I know Paul's probably in agreement with me here. So don't think tenure is tenure. Don't think permanence is permanence. I'll just give you an example from my previous university, a bloke who got millions and millions and millions of dollars in grants, had incredible success with PhD students, had 11 current PhD students, wasn't liked too much by the people in power, and got basically a day's notice, came out of nowhere, got restructured out of the organisation and had to finish before Christmas. So don't for one moment think that permanence is permanence. We are all the precariat now, and we are all one day from being out of work. So I don't know if that helps, but Maeve, can we go to Kate? Should we go to Kate and then back to Maeve? Is that all right, Maeve? Go, Kate. Go, darling.
Can I just ask Liam what happened in Brighton?
Oh, I'm the institution. So I'm not at the University of Brighton, but they're part of my collective solidarity. And I've been in some campaign with another professor recently at trying to defend and save the institution. Like a lot of institutions in the UK at the moment, especially in the post-92 sector, they're being cut and cut and cut, and there's going to be nothing left in about 5 years' time. And people are being moved out of jobs. People are quitting jobs left, right and centre, who are quite mid-career academics and seem quite comfortable, but they're really not. And so it's quite horrific what's happening across the sector in the UK at the moment. And it's not been helped with the government releasing lots of slogans, adverts saying we're going to crack down on rip-off degrees as if it's some kind of like financial transaction. So yeah, there's a lot of different proxies occurring, and they're all kind of falling into one place. And it's really frightening.
It is. And Liam, it's been mainly configured around, I mean, it's been the sociology, leisure studies, media studies, criminology, that particular centre left to a little bit further left, but nothing bonkers, really pretty centre left stuff. That they're the disciplines that have been particularly gone for, haven't they been, mate?
Yeah, it's like an axe has been hit at us in the last week or so. And yeah, it's just, and also just anti-intellectualism at its best, you know, which you talk about constantly, Tara. And it's really, really concerning as someone, as a first generation student from, you know, working class background, still live in a working class area. It's really, really worrying.
Yeah.
I'm kind of just living with the hope, well, not hopelessness, but kind of fear. And I'm hoping that it feeds something, you know, some action.
Yeah, look, Liam, I think it will. The best work I've ever written, and the legendary Professor Mike Kent always told me this, the best work I've ever written has come from rage and has come from anger. And that's terrible. I know it's probably particularly terrible from a woman, but again, you don't want to be living this sort of, you know, the notion that you've got to be living in this dreadful, unstable existence to produce great work. I'm not the sort of artist in an attic that has to suffer. That's nonsense. That's nonsense, and it's not right. But if you can put the problem into the work, if you can funnel the rage creates some fantastic prose, Liam.
I've found, Liam, that I don't know about you, but in the last week or so, it's the prospective students that have got so opposed to Rishi Sunak, our Prime Minister, his opinions on Mickey Mouse degrees. The students are actually up in arms, right? And we've had not an uptick in student interest, but certainly solidarity from prospective students saying, actually, no, we want to see the post-92 universities because that's where the good, solid research and work is happening. And especially in the arts where I'm in, where we're being pretty hit hard by saying it's a worthless degree and culture entertainment means nothing to the industry, which is obviously rubbish. But yeah, the students are quite opposed, which is good.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. It's where the knowledge is coming from. We would have no Manchester Institute for Popular Culture. We wouldn't have Rave Off. We wouldn't have ultra realism without these institutions and these people behind them. You know,
absolutely right. And look, I wish I was there. A lot of me lives in the north of England pretty well permanently, as you know, Liam. And so I endlessly feel torn. I always feel like I'm living in the wrong spot where the rest of my sort of carcass is. So there's this terrible separation. But as I said, you call on me. And I'm very happy to summon Steve's legacy as required, because he would be filled with rage. So you use me, you use my legacy, you use his legacy, and you call me in when you need me, because most of me still is living in the north of England. All right, Liam? You're the best, brother. You are the best. Well, look, we're nearing the end, but we need to go to Maeve, because Maeve was going to offer a final sort of hurrah for us. What a powerful morning. Sue, this has been pretty powerful. My, who knew we'd go here? So Maeve, where do you want to finish us off, my darling?
Thank you. I've put it in the chat in case we didn't get time, and I appreciate Kate's question because it got Liam to tell us much more, and so that was really good, Kate, because the extra bit you've just offered us, Liam, to me gave even more context to what you're saying. And my hand is up for you, Liam, if I can be of support to you in some way, as well as this group. I would love to. Oh, nearly got teary there, Liam. Okay, the reason I was commenting was I wanted to make a link between what Paul said about the timelessness of sound, and I was just absolutely struck by that. And I thought that it made a really strong link to many people as mature students looking for income streams,
yes.
That work that goes out that is sonic, sound-based, that matrix, if you like,
yes.
that work, just like a book, that work is going to has the potential to reverberate over time. So I thought that was a fascinating link to the fact that we've been talking about income streams on a weekly basis, and then that comment from Paul. I love that it's timeless. That's really important.
It's really, really, really true. And May, for you particularly, but also for Doug, I'm actually learning this week the end of the Ellen trilogy. So we started with media usage. I recorded yesterday morning the critiques of media usage, the people that hate academics using the media.
Sure.
And yeah, no, it was a fun one. I enjoyed yesterday morning. And next Thursday, I'm recording the big one for you and for Doug about the income streams. And the thing about sonic income streams and audiobooks is that they do sustain forever. But even more than that, Maeve, people listen to the sound-only material and then buy the book backwards. So people think that the market is cannibalized by having an audiobook. It's the exact opposite. People listen to the audiobook, love it, and then want to read it. So actually, you don't cannibalize your income stream, you double it.
Brilliant. Great ending, and thank you so much, Liam.
You're the best, Liam. So colleagues, what an amazing, amazing, amazing day we've had. This is, I never know where you're all going to take me, Kylie. It's unbelievable, isn't it? We started at qual, quant and representative data sets, and we ended up basically focusing on the revolution, as we always do. So colleagues, I thank you for your time. We all send our love to Liam, and our support to Liam and all our colleagues in the UK. Our Queen Donna, of course, is just so powerful in the work that she's doing. Paul is so inspirational, and we send all our love to you. I know we seem a long, long way from Darwin, Australia, to all of you, but in so many ways we're not. And the nature of academic life is we are a community, and we are a powerful community, and we suffer together, and we will also thrive together. So I thank you for sharing digital office hours with us this week, and I'll see many of you in Red Club shortly, and I wish you all a lovely week. Much love, much blessings. Thank you all. Sleep well, Liam. Sleep well, Donna. Bye-bye, my darling.
Thanks, everyone. See you, Paul. See you, Liam.
See you, Carl. See you, Carl.